And increase your 5 marks for question 1.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question you wanted to see?
No, sir. Sufficient. Done for.
No, sir.
107, 108. Sorry?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
115, 1813,
No, sir.
No, sir.
1849. Okay. Is there anyone else? I'm not going to show it again. Fine. I hope that no one else wanted to see that for the marks.
we end up either with a set of partial differential equations or a set of ordinary differential equation or algebraic equations. Algebraic equation occurs when we really wanted to capture the system at steady states. We don't want to bother or we don't want to capture the change in some species with time. If that is the case, then dCA by dt or dy by dt becomes zero and the equations results into the algebraic equations. Many times it might happen that the algebraic equations appears in couple with ordinary differential equations or partial differential equations. So we should be in a position to solve this type of system. So here I'm going to tell you how do we solve algebraic equations using Matlab. So there are different types of algebraic equation. For example, a linear equations and a non-linear equation. If we classify equation or then non-linear equations like equation, trigonometric equation, equation, or exponential equations. So how do we solve these type of equations in Matlab? That's what we are going to see today. So linear equations. So each term in this equation is either a constant or a product of constant and single variable. The classical example of linear equation is the equation of line, that is y is equal to mx plus c, where c is constant, m is also constant, and x is a variable. So if you see each and every term, it's either a single variable term or it's the product of constant and single variable term. Okay. There and if you look at y is equal to mx plus c, it's basically two variable equations. Correct. So types of linear equation: one variable, two variable, three variable, so and so forth. So if you look at first equations, that is equation. This is 8a minus 8 is equal to 0. And we know that how do we solve this? We can transfer the minus 8 on the right hand sides and divided by 8, we get the value of a as 1. So that's a one variable equation. It's pretty easy to solve. The another equations is two variable equation. Look at this. This is two variable equation. That's a 7x plus 7y is equal to 12. Or 8a minus 8b is equal to 74. These are three variables. We cannot solve these one variable equations or two variables equations. If for two variable equations, we need at least two equations. Then we can solve it. Three variables, we need three equations. So these are the linear equations. Then comes quadratic equations. Quadratic equations, as the name suggests, is a second degree equation in one variable. So look at this. So x, this equation is in the form of x variable, and x variable, the maximum power is 2. That's the second degree. So that's why we call it the quadratic equation. Similar the story here for the second equations too. Then cubic equations. One variable equations with the highest exponent is 3. So here 4y cubed plus 14y square minus 10y plus 8. Y has the highest power as 3. And then there is a polynomial equations where we don't have really any limits on the exponent. It may be 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever maybe. Uh, Trigonometric equations. These are the equations contain trigonometric functions such as sine, cos, tan, sec, etc. Radical equations is an equation in which variable lying inside the radical symbol, that is square roots or any radical symbols. So variables if lies in that, then it will be called as a radical equations. And then last one is exponential equation. Equations we have variables at the place of exponent. So look at these equations. So 4 raised to power x is equal to 0. So x variable is lies at the place of exponent. That equations we call exponential. So having classified these equations and try to understand what are these different types of equations with the examples, we will go ahead and try to solve it. So linear equations, one variable equations, that's a 3x plus 9 is equal to 0. You can solve it by using symbolic toolbox in Matlab. If we have symbolic toolbox, the sims is basically tells you that you are defining this variable x as a symbolic variable, and then we are trying to solve the equations as x minus 5 is equal to. Okay, so let's try to do in math. So I am defining first SYMS sims of x. So I defined my x variable as a symbolic term. How do we check whether what are the toolbox available with us? Is by just typing one VER. If you type one, it gives you the list of toolboxes which are available in your current version of. Yeah, so it has a symbolic mat toolbox. So I'm going to type now sims x. Yeah, so it created the symbolic variable x, sims x. And now what I'm going to do, going to solve this. Solve x minus 5. That's a one variable equations. This is what I wrote. Solve x minus 5. And then I can enter. So I got the answer as 5. So the x is equal to 5. So any single variable equations you can solve by using the solve commands and by defining that variable as a symbolic. Let's have two variable equations like this. Like this. How do we solve this? is simply by using inverse in Matlab. So we can write this equation as let's say I'm trying to write this equation as ax is equal to b. Correct? So I can get x as a inverse b. Correct? So let's try to write this in this form. So how do I write? 3, 9, 4, 10. This is my A matrix. Into my X matrix is small x, small y. Into my B matrix is 7, y, 7 and 70. So if I wanted to solve this in this form, I will get x, y is equal to A inverse. That's it. 3, 9, 4, 10 inverse into 7, 70. Mathematically, this is possible. 2 by 2 into 2 by 1. Same. So resulting answers get 2 by 1. That's the 2 rows. Clear? Let's try to solve this. I'm trying to formulate A. So let's have capital A equal to square brackets. First variable is 3, 9, 4, 10. B space 9, 10. I define matrix A, then I can define matrix B as 7 in not B. Now if I wanted to solve it to get X, I can write as capital X equal to, I know for finding the inverse, I can write as INV of A to B. For the answers I got in X as 13.83 and X second element is minus 3.83. So the first elements in my equations were X. So I got the value of small x equal to capital X of 1. Y equal to capital X of 2. Correct? So even if there are 3 variables, three equations, I can write in the same format. Four equations, four variables, n number of equations, n number of variables. I can write in the same format and take the inverse of a matrix and find out the values of the variables. This is the way I can solve any linear equations. If it's a one variables, I can people try these three variables, three equations. Try this in your Matlab. So I hope that you might have solved this. Let's go to the algebraic equations and some quadratic equations. Again, if you have equations like this, which is x square minus 7x plus 12 is equal to 0. This is a complete equation. What we do, we can write left hand side of these equations in a equation forms, okay, and try to solve these equations. That's one way of this. Or if you don't want to write in a symbolic forms, then we can use the commands called as groups. So the first element here is the coefficient of x square. The second element is coefficient of x. Third is a constant. So basically these are the terms which are the coefficients in a ascending order or a descending order of the power. So for example, if you are trying to solve x square plus 12, so you don't have really the term of x, the coefficient of x, then you write 0. Okay? You write 0. So let's try to solve this by roots. So I have x square minus 7x plus 12. I'm going to solve it by roots. I'm going to solve it by roots. So I have roots. Then I can use square bracket, sorry, parenthesis, and then square brackets. The terms which I have are 1 minus 7, 12. So I can write 1 space minus 7 space 12. Closing the brackets, closing the command bracket, that's a parenthesis. Then, yeah, I don't like this way. I am entering it. So I got x is equal to 4 and x is 3. So we need to find out which are correct. By substituting the equations, one of these might be satisfying the equations. So let's substitute the 4. Substitute the 4. So it's a 4 square, 16. 4 square, 16 minus 28 plus 12 is equal to 0. This satisfied, correct? 28, 28. Yes, 3, 9 minus 21 plus 12 is not satisfied. No, this is also satisfied. 12 plus no, 28 is also satisfied. So both, I mean, this equation can have either a 4 value or either a 3 value. And then depends on your physics, you can check. So quadratic equations can be solved by the roots. We try u with once. Say 7x.
examples of solve students. Since EX are solve EX. That's the yes. Find X as a small variables. Okay. And then I say solve. Solve. Equations. Zero minus x sure equal 0. Okay. I forgot the syntax. So we can solve any equations. And by this way, I can show you if you got stuck in somewhere, how do we solve that particular things or how do we debug that particular things. So I was not remembering the syntax of solve. Then I went and the help from Matlab. So solve x square minus 7x plus 12 equal to assignment equal to 0. And then it's solved for x. Correct? So we can use the solve. You can use the roots for maybe cubical equations or any exponent of y. So you need to write only the specials. So cubic equations, polynomial equations, you can solve. If you solve more than 2 powers, then using solve command, it doesn't provide you answers in a straightforward way. Correct? So you need to write VPA as a command. Then, so let's see. Works here. So I have equations as 4y cubed plus 14y squared minus 10y plus 8 is equal to 0. This is the equations I have. Let's say I'm going to solve it by solve. Roots is a pretty easy command. So I need to first so like solve. Let's go. Write the equation as square plus 8 multiplied by minus multiplied bracket of it says equal to it solves. But the answers which you get is not in a readable form. So what we do, let's define a W equal to this dot. And where I got the answers. Got AW, and then I'm writing PPA is the command. Basically, it's our answers just readable form, I think. AW. Okay, so this is what is the answers of this. Minus 0.5 minus this imaginary. So complex conjugate you get the solution of these equations. So you need to write VPA. Right? You can solve cubic equations, you can solve polynomial equations. Same form. Trigonometric equations, I mean, we don't get that much trigonometric equation, but still I will cover this trigonometric equations in the next. So I'm going to stop here. Any problems, please let me know on today's explanations. If not,